in a bustling, sun-dappled forest nestled deep within a sprawling anthill, lived a tiny ant named Pip. Pip was just like all the other ants, scurrying day in and day out, following the scented trails left by his colony. Their world was one of order, of lines, of carrying crumbs much bigger than themselves. Every morning the queen would address them, her voice echoing through the chambers, for the colony, for the queen, and every ant would chant back in unison. But Pip, well, Pip's heart often wandered. He'd look up at the towering blades of grass, like skyscrapers, and wonder what lay beyond their familiar trails. One sunny afternoon, while hauling a particularly heavy breadcrumb, Pip noticed something unusual, a flash of brilliant blue, unlike any leaf or flower he'd ever seen. He strayed from the line, his curiosity getting the better of him. There, perched on a dew-kissed mushroom, was another ant. But this ant was different. She had a shimmering, iridescent exoskeleton that shifted from sapphire to amethyst in the light. She wasn't carrying anything. Instead, she was meticulously arranging tiny pebbles into a spiral. "What are you doing?" Pip asked, dropping his crumb. The blue ant looked up, her large, curious eyes blinking. "I'm making something beautiful," she replied, her voice soft like a whisper on the wind. "I'm iarvae." Pip was stunned. "But we're supposed to be collecting food for the colony." Iarvae just smiled. "There's more to life than just collecting, isn't there?" Pip had never thought about it. He spent the rest of the afternoon with Iarvae, watching her create intricate mosaics from fallen petals and tiny twigs. She showed him how to listen to the song of the crickets, how to taste the sweetness of morning dew, and how to see the patterns in the clouds. The world, which had always been a map of trails and tasks, suddenly bloomed into a vibrant tapestry of colors, sounds, and feelings. When the sun began to set, Pip knew he had to return. "Will you be here tomorrow?" he asked, a sense of hope bubbling inside him. Iarvae nodded. "The world is full of beauty, Pip. You just have to know where to look." As he hurried back to the anthill, the familiar chant of "for the colony" didn't sound quite the same. Pip started living two lives. By day, he was a diligent worker, a tiny cog in the great machine of the colony. But in his spare moments, he'd sneak away to meet Iarvae. She taught him to paint with berry juice on smooth stones and to sculpt little figures from soft mud. He felt a joy he'd never known, a sense of purpose that came from creating, not just collecting. He tried to share his discoveries with his fellow ants. "Look," he'd say, holding up a petal mosaic. "Isn't it amazing?" But they would just scuttle past, their minds fixed on the next crumb. "That won't feed the colony, Pip," one of them scoffed. Pip felt a pang of loneliness. Was he the only one who saw the world differently? One day, a terrible drought fell upon the forest. The ground grew hard and cracked, plants withered, and food became scarce. The colony's reserves dwindled, and a quiet panic began to spread. The Queen's rallying cries grew more desperate. Pip worked harder than ever, his tiny body aching, but there was simply not enough food to find. The once bustling anthill grew quiet and sombre. The other ants, once so sure of their purpose, now looked lost and afraid. Their trails led to nowhere. Their world of order had crumbled into chaos. Pip's heart ached for his family, seeing their hope fade with each passing day. He knew the usual way wasn't working anymore. Pip sought out Azure. He found her near a dried-up stream, looking worried. Azure, "My colony is in trouble. We can't find any food." Azure looked at Pip, then at the parched landscape. She didn't offer simple reassurances. Instead, she said, "Pip, when the old paths disappear, you have to create a new one." She pointed her antenna towards the sky. "Remember the patterns in the clouds, the songs of the wind. The world speaks to us if we listen. Your colony follows scent trails, but there are other trails to follow." She encouraged him to use all the senses she had helped him awaken, to look for signs the other ants ignored. A new idea sparked in Pip's mind. He remembered seeing a flock of birds flying in a consistent direction every morning. He recalled the faint, sweet scent carried on the wind from a place he'd never explored. He thought about the direction the morning glories always faced. These weren't the familiar pheromone trails, but they were patterns, just like the ones Azure had taught him to see. He had to convince his colony to trust him, to follow a path that wasn't marked by their own scent. It was a terrifying thought. How could he, a single, small ant, change the minds of thousands who only knew one way of life? He raced back to the anthill and climbed atop the highest entrance, where the queen usually stood. "Listen to me," he shouted, his voice small but clear. All eyes turned to him. "The old trails are gone, but there are new signs. The birds, the wind, the flowers. They are showing us the way." The other ants murmured, confused and skeptical. "That's nonsense," one shouted. "We follow the Queen's command." But the Queen, seeing the desperation in her colony and a flicker of something new in Pip's eyes, silenced them. "Show us, Pip," she commanded, her voice heavy with the weight of her responsibility. "Show us this new path." With a deep breath, Pip led the way. He guided them not by scent, but by sight, sound, and a deep intuitive feeling. He followed the flight path of the birds, noticed the subtle green of distant moss, and tracked a faint floral aroma on the breeze. It was a strange, meandering journey. Many ants grumbled, their faith wavering, but Pip, with Azure's lessons in his heart, remained confident. He encouraged them to look up, to see the world around them, not just the ground beneath their feet. For the first time, the ants saw the forest not as a series of obstacles, but as a living, breathing world full of clues. Finally, after a long and uncertain trek, they arrived. Before them lay a hidden grove, untouched by the drought. A small spring trickled into a pool of fresh water, and lush berry bushes hung heavy with ripe, juicy fruit. A field of wildflowers bloomed, their nectar glistening in the sun. It was a paradise. The colony stared in disbelief, then erupted into a cheer that echoed through the grove. They had been saved not by following old rules, but by embracing a new way of seeing it. They looked at Pip not as a strange dreamer, but as a hero, a visionary. The colony thrived in their new home, but something more profound had changed. Inspired by Pip, the ants began to see the world differently. They still worked together, but now there was a new spirit among them. Some ants started arranging pebbles into patterns near the entrance. Others learned to identify different flower scents. They found a new balance, a harmony between work and wonder, between duty and beauty. Pip and Azure often sat together, watching their two worlds merge into one. The colony was stronger than ever, not just because they had food, but because they had found joy and creativity. Pip, the tiny ant who dared to be different, had shown them that the most important trails are not the ones we follow, but the ones we create. And that a world seen with an open heart is a world full of endless possibilities. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.